Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about dating Japanese men. Wait, that came out all wrong. Try that again. Today we're going to talk about Japanese men. Now, I'm not talking from experience. I had a comment on one of my videos that there's a lot of information about dating Japanese women, not a lot of information about dating Japanese men. And you know what? That's a fair comment. Word of caution, most of the information online about dating Japanese women is pure garbage. So take it with a grain of salt. But as far as the topic of dating Japanese men, you're right. There's not a lot of information, and I don't have any personal experience. So I reached out to a couple friends who have either dated or married Japanese men. I said, let's do a podcast. We should talk about this. It's a fascinating topic. And they said, well, I don't really want to be on camera, but you can use my story, just not my name. So I said, okay, great. Here's what I learned. Now, if I may be so presumptuous as to provide some advice, for what it's worth, this is all my opinion, and maybe some anecdotes from friends, but one of my friends said, you never really know a guy until you go on vacation with him. So here's the thing, and this could get my man card revoked, is most guys can be on their best behavior for a couple hours. But stick with us for a weekend, you're going to get to know the real me, right? So how does he handle lost luggage? How does he handle setbacks? How does he handle stress? How does he handle disappointments? How does he handle good things, right? How does he handle himself? What are his table manners, right? You want to see all these things, spend a couple of days with him. Like I said, you don't really know somebody till you go on vacation with them. Make it very clear from the beginning. Is this a serious, committed relationship? And now, match his expectations to yours. I'm not going to tell anybody how to live, but if you want a certain relationship and he doesn't want that, make that clear from the beginning. And since you probably won't meet his parents for quite a while, unless you're getting engaged, they say that people end up being like their parents. Well, one way to find out about his relationship with his parents is ask him. You can say things like, we've only been together a couple months, but I'm really curious. Like, I know it's not traditional to meet the family really quick, but I'm really curious about your family. Tell me about your mom. And his answers will tell you a lot about what he thinks about women. He'll tell you about his relationship with his mom. And then same thing for guys. Ask her, how she feels about her dad. And if she tells you that her dad is a horrible person, that kind of tells you what she thinks about guys. But ask him about his mom. And this will give you a lot of insight into how he feels about women. If he says she's a horrible person and he will never forgive her, well, red flag. If he says great things about her, awesome. Be clear about the future. Children, finances, where to live, things like that. It's very important to have the same attitude about money. And I've seen this now. I'm a lawyer. I haven't done any family law divorces, but I've seen a lot of people get divorced because they have totally different attitudes about money, and they didn't discuss it before getting married. So is he a big spender? Is he stingy? Is he a saver? Things that might make women uncomfortable is if a guy spends as fast as he makes money. So just be aware of that. You want to get to know him before you make a major commitment. What does he think about having children? Does he want children? You want to get that up front. If you want children and he doesn't, well, then you're going to have to figure out, you're going to have to make some decisions. That's totally up to you. And if he's a big spender and you're not, that can be very difficult. If he's always running out of money, that can, put stress on the relationship sooner or later, most likely sooner. Also, find out about his financial situation. One problem that comes up often too late is debt. So has he opened a business and took out a huge loan and then the business closed down? Now he got a job at a big company. Or does he have student loans? Or does he have gambling debt? Things like that. You want to find that out early. Not everybody, but some people do have a lot of debt, and it's not something you talk about on the first date, right? But before you get married, that's something you want to talk about. Is, hey, I want to know your situation, and I think that's a very reasonable thing to ask. If he avoids the question, well, then I think that's a red flag too. About disagreements, I talked about it earlier when I talked about housework, or I talked about cleaning and doing dishes, things like that. It's always better to be diplomatic. In my experience. Tell me what you think. But if I were to push somebody to do something, they might do it, but they're going to do a lousy job. And the next time I want them to do it, I'm going to have to push them again. I'm going to have to maybe even escalate and push harder next time. They're going to dig in their heels. But if I praise somebody, they're going to want to do it. So what gets incentivized gets repeated. So when it comes to things like housework, make that very clear up front. You don't want to wait until you moved in to find out that he doesn't know how to use a washing machine. For heaven's sake, that's a couple of buttons. It's always very good to be diplomatic. Like I said, my friend got her husband to do all the dishes forever by telling him he looked hot when he did dishes. Find ways like that, gentle ways, a little more persuasive than pushing. And finally, you're not going to change Japan. One way to make sure that your life in Japan is absolutely miserable is to try to change Japan. I've made that mistake, and over the past 3 decades, I've learned not going to change Japan. Not going to change Japanese culture. So if somebody grew up thinking things have to be a certain way, you're probably not going to change his mind. So if somebody's too stubborn, and is too stubborn in a way that's going to make the relationship not work, it's good to find that out sooner rather than later. Maybe find a guy who's more international, who works for a multinational company, or who speaks your language, or has lived overseas, or at least traveled a bit, right? You want to find somebody who's a little bit more open-minded. This is not to say that all Japanese are closed-minded or too stubborn or things like that. They've never traveled. Japanese vary by person. You have to take them as an individual. Be clear about your expectations. I think I've touched on that a couple times already. Have I beat that drum enough? Be clear about your expectations, and last but not least, prepare to be surprised sometimes. You think you know somebody, and then they reveal another layer of themselves, and in any long-term relationship, you're going to find out, like, well, I thought I knew this person, but suddenly they just did something to shock the hell out of me. And that can happen after years, after 5-10 years. Be prepared to be surprised. And now I've given a lot of information about dating. And by the way, you don't have to take my advice. This is just anecdotal. And some of this is just my personal experience or experience that I've heard from women who've dated Japanese men or married Japanese men. But I want to hear your experience in the comments below. Have you been in an international relationship? Are the things that I mentioned in this video universal? Are they unique to Japan? Or do you know somebody who is a completely opposite of the characteristics I've mentioned here? I want to hear from you. And I've got some videos on the things that Japanese women want in a partner or boyfriend or husband. Got a video right here about that. And I've got another video right here, a random video that YouTube has selected based on the algorithm, and they think you'll like it. And by the way, speaking of the algorithm, make sure to like and subscribe because it makes sure that more people get to see this video.